This might just be one of the biggest mysteries that you ever hear, because in the vast wilderness of the Canadian Arctic, a chilling mystery lies buried beneath the snow-covered tundra. The once thriving Inuit village of Anjikuni, which was home to over 30 souls, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a haunting tale that has perplexed investigators for decades. Our story begins on a bitterly cold November day in 1930, when a seasoned fur trapper named Joe Labelle sought shelter in this remote settlement. Now, Labelle was no stranger to the harsh realities of the Arctic. He had visited Anjikuni before and remembered it as a lively community full of activity and warmth. But as he trudged through the village's eerie, silent streets, an unsettling realization began to dawn on him. Anjikuni was now a ghost town. So Labelle's mounting unease grew with each deserted home he encountered. The houses, though fully stocked with food and supplies, were devoid of any human presence. In fact, in one dwelling, he discovered the remnants of a hastily abandoned meal, a pot of stew that was burned and left to smolder on the dying embers of a fire. In another house, he saw a half-mended sealskin coat, and it just lay there on a bunk, the sewing needles still embedded in the fabric, as if the seamstress had been abruptly torn away from her work. The trapper's mind raced with possibilities. Had the villagers fled in the face of some terrible danger? But if so, why had they left behind their winter clothing and their precious food stores, essential for survival in this unforgiving Arctic climate? And where were the signs of their desperate exodus? The pristine snow surrounding the village bore no trace of any footprints or any indication of the direction that they might have gone or been taken. So Labelle, being a pragmatic guy, was not easily shaken, but he felt this profound sense of unease just wash over him. He knew that deep in his bones something was terribly amiss. And despite his exhaustion and his gnawing hunger in his stomach, he chose to leave Anjikuni without even partaking in the abandoned provisions. So strong was his desire to escape this oppressive atmosphere of the forsaken village. So mustering his last reserves of strength, Labelle battled through the raging snowstorm to reach a distant telegraph station. And there is where he relayed the disturbing tale of Anjikuni's disappearance to the authorities, setting in motion an investigation that would only deepen the mystery. The Mounties, or the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, dispatched to unravel this enigma, soon made a startling discovery of their own. As they scoured the outskirts of the village, they found that the graves in the local cemetery held a very tantalizing secret. And the Mounties at this point felt a chill run down their spine, knowing that no human could possibly achieve this. Who or what could have committed such a heinous act? And what that act was, well, we'll get to in one moment. But as the investigation wore on, the Mounties uncovered yet another piece of the puzzle. A nearby trapper, Armand Laurent. He recounted a bizarre sighting that had just occurred days before the village's disappearance. He and his children had witnessed this strange cylindrical object streaking across the sky, its shape morphing into like a bullet form as it sped towards Anjikuni. And the Mounties, though skeptical, couldn't shake the feeling that this peculiar event was somehow connected to the village's fate as well. And their suspicions were only heightened when, upon leaving Anjikuni, they caught a glimpse of the same object. But this time it was eerie, flashing blue lights dancing above the abandoned settlement, seemed to be winking at them. And yes, these Mounties saw the Aurora Borealis, and they saw the Northern Lights all the time, and they swore that this was nothing like it. The lights, unlike anything they had seen, vanished as suddenly as they appeared, leaving the Mounties to wonder if they had just witnessed something truly extraordinary. And of course, in the years that followed, theories about the fate of the Anjikuni's residents were abound. Some whispered of alien abductions, pointing to the strange lights and the UFO sighting as evidence of extraterrestrial involvement. Others, like Joe Labelle himself, spoke of the dreaded Wendigo, a legendary creature said to haunt the forests of North America, half man, half beast, and hungry for human flesh. But as the decades passed on, no concrete explanation for the disappearance of Anjikuni's inhabitants ever surfaced. The village remained a ghost town, its secrets buried beneath the unending snows of the Arctic. But one clue was found that day that the Mounties were there, and it might tell us exactly what happened to the whole village. You see, as I said before, as they were examining the outskirts of the settlement, they made an additional discovery that unnerved even these hardened law enforcement officers. You see, the graves of the village cemetery had recently been opened, and every single dead body was gone. And for the sake of Labelle's sanity, it was probably a good thing that he had missed this detail at all. But for the Mounties who found it, the gruesome sight presented another enigma. How could the villagers, who had apparently left in such a hurry that they couldn't even grab their winter coats on the way out, have dug up their dead and taken hundreds of bodies with them? Besides which, such a thing was totally contrary to the Inuit culture, which enforced a severe taboo on desecrating graves, let alone the graves of their cherished family members. So it seemed utterly impossible that the villagers could have done this. But then who had? No, literally, who could have done this? Because remember, at that time, the ground was frozen so solid that it would have been nearly impossible to open the graves without some sort of heavy equipment. And the Mounties didn't have any answers, so they simply got back on their horses and rode off to report their findings. And the truth is, well, no one knows. To this day, no bodies have been found, no footprints, no signs of life. The village of Anjikuni remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in history. The disappearance of people without one single clue left behind. Entire families, generations of life in that harsh land gone in an instant. And the question lingers, what really happened to Anjikuni? So as you sit here with me, by the warmth of this metaphorical campfire, ask yourself, what would you have done? Would you have run like Joe Labelle, flinging into the snowstorm? Or would you have stayed, searching for answers in this desolate silence? And most importantly, do you believe that something could take an entire village without leaving a trace? Because once you start to believe, the question isn't what happened to them. It's who or what could be next. Just be warned that if you make the trek out there, there's no certainty that you'll ever come back. Now, I think you could agree that this is a 1 in a million story. But I also have another 1 in a million story, so much so that I actually named it a 1 in a million story, and that's right here. So make sure to click on it to find out how 1 in a million it truly was. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.